What's that? Talk to him.
Tell me what you see when I pass by.
FM 88.1 WHPR, Highland Park.
Another night of AniMondays with me, your host, Rodney Tompkins. And AniMondays, in case for all who don't know, is just open discussions of all things anime and gaming or Japan in general. You know, we got a great love and otaku fan base here in Detroit, Michigan, and anywhere else you may be listening via the WHPR app. And I just like to make it public and let our presence known that we are these otaku who really have a great appreciation for the things that come out of the Japanese country and Eastern culture in general. So tonight, with me, your host, Rodney Tompkins, we'll be discussing a few things. Actually, that first song you heard, I'd like to give you a little info on that. That was the intro to Super Smash Bros. Melee that first launched on the Nintendo GameCube back in 2001. It was a 4-player fighter game from the studio Nintendo that's still making games to this day. The arrangement was done by Kentaro Ishizaka. He usually did the arrangement for the song, and it's actually a couple of different medleys from different video games in that intro. So it had a bunch of different composers, or 3 specifically. Hirokazu Ando, Tadashi Ikegami, and Shogo Sakai are the 3 composers who worked on that intro. It had a lot of different songs from Zelda and Kirby, and even, I think, Metroid had a part of it. I don't think so. But that was the intro to Super Smash Bros. Melee. That'll be one of our topics for tonight. Also, we'll be talking about esports in general. Esports, electronic sports, gaming, tournaments, stuff like that. It's really taking off as far as popularity-wise, and I want to get a little info about that. I'll be showing you telling you a little more info about the NX, the Nintendo NX, the next console in the works. My anime review for the week was if I watched the first episode of this anime called Haven't You Heard? I Am Sakamoto, which is a weird little slice-of-life comedy school setting type anime. I give you a review of that first episode. And confirmation of the PS4K that we talked about last week. Basically, this more powerful PS4 that'll still be in this gen, but it's an option if you want to chime in or get this more powerful version of the PS4 if you already have it. If you concerned with the highest quality visuals in your movies and gaming, it may concern you. If not, stick to your PS4. They are making it optional. They won't have exclusives for it. So with that, let's dive right in. Now, if you live in the Detroit area, you may have seen a couple of my posters hanging around. I decided to throw some flyers out for my AniMonday shows. And the artwork was done by my friend King Fu. You can find, or Devon is his name. He goes by King Fu. He's a great artist, great musician in general, and he's been going into the graphic design direction. And he did the artwork for my flyer. So check him out on Facebook. Devon is his name. You can find him on his Facebook at King Fu, and then you can find his Instagram. What is his Instagram? He just sent it to me. But if you want more info on that, I can get that to you myself. Find me at Facebook at Rodney Tompkins, or you can tweet me at Big Badada. That's BIGBADADA. And definitely check him out. Great artist, great graphic designer, has some amazing beats that he makes, and he even raps on them himself. Lyrically, he is amazing, so definitely check him out. Let's dive right into eSports. If you are not sure what eSports are, basically electronic sports. And gaming has really taken off this past decade when it came to online. So a lot of games, whether it's a shooter, sports games, 2K, Madden, even fighting games, Street Fighter, Tekken, Super Smash Brothers, they've really taken off as far as popularity. And they have sponsors. You can go to local tournaments in your city, or you can travel to annual ones. Like I've gone to Apex last year in February, Apex 2015. I entered the Super Smash Brothers tournament, the singles, so 1 versus 1, no items, stuff like that. And this past one that recently passed, was the Smash Summit. And they basically get a sponsor. They fly in 10 of the best players for that game. In this case, it was Super Smash Brothers Melee. And they play it competitively for a pop bonus of up to $10,000, I believe it was this time. And the competitive scene of gaming, I don't like to compare it to real sports. I mean, you have esports that are electronic sports. It basically is not a quote-unquote real workout, but it does test your hand-eye coordination and basic reflexes in general. And gaming can do that. Not as good as an actual sport can, getting out the house, going, getting exercise, but it is a strategy and a basically a physical strain, kinda. I don't want to put as much compare it to actual sports, but it is a physical strain when it comes to competitive gaming. The stress can get to you. The jitters can definitely affect you. I was in a tournament and I knew I could play well, but just the vibe of the environment. It was a great environment. I loved being there. Met a bunch of great players, but you get nervous, and it's just as competitive as an actual sport. So if you've ever been to a tournament or have questions about esports in general, give me a call down here at 313-868-0331. And I want to go into this topic because ESPN, notably known for their coverage of sports like baseball, basketball, football, whatever, they are going to be covering esports. In fact, they already started with the recent Smash Summit that happened this past weekend. And, if you compare it to, a lot of people have been hating on it, or they've been getting a lot of flack for even supporting esports. And, I mean, it's a new generation. It's a new time. Sports are still great. I like to watch whenever I get the chance. But electronic sports, gaming in general, has really taken off, and it really has a hype and a fan base behind it. And I give props to ESPN for just deciding to cover it. They're the first big sponsorship, big enough to be aired on TV and all that. Twitch does sponsor video game tournaments. Other streaming places, even companies themselves, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, may sponsor a tournament and stream it live. But ESPN is the first sports coverage company to decide to sponsor esports. And I just find that really amazing. It's a whole new time we're in. And the Smash Summit also happened this past weekend, and basically it was sponsored by the Beyond the Summit is their name, and they brought in 10 of the best Super Smash Brothers Melee players, and they battled it out in 1 versus 1 singles and duked it out the game to see who would win this $10,000 pot. And even they hosted a vote. You can vote in your favorite Melee player competitively, and they'd fly them in depending on who won the vote or how many they got. And the top players that came in via the Smash Summit, or was sponsored by Beyond the Summit, were Hungrybox, M2K, Axe, even Shroom. These are all not Leffen. These are all great Melee players. Have been playing this game competitively since 2001, and even newer iterations of the Smash Bros. Series has come out since 2001. 2 of them, in fact. And this is still the one that's played competitively. It has the most hype behind it. The scene is great. The fan base is a bit cancerous, if you will. They think they're elitist. They believe this version of the game is the best, and you shouldn't play the other ones competitively. But depends on how you play it. You can have fun either way. But it was really great. I believe Armada took out Hungrybox, who he may have won last year's Smash Summit. But Armada, one of the top 5 best Melee players, took out Hungrybox, one of the they're both one of the top 5 best players in the world. They've been doing these tourneys for years, and it was really amazing to watch. So basically, I want to give props to ESPN in general, just for having the gall to step up and say, we're going to support esports. This is a new thing. This is a gym that has potential behind it, and we're going to support it. So if you got an opinion on that, give me a call down here at 313-868-0331, and just let me know what you think about ESPN, this sports company covering electronic sports, and doing a good job of it so far. They have highlights of this past tournament that happened online. You can find them online. I don't know if they'll be airing it live on TV, but you never know. The scene behind it is great. You never know how big it'll be when it takes off. And, yeah, that was Smash Bros. Even PAX East also happened this weekend. That's also another gaming or comic book convention that happens this past weekend. And they host tourneys or have friendly matches you can do while you're there. And I bring this up because it's funny. One of the sponsors for PAX East, Twitch, decided, you know what, they're sponsoring it. We're handing out free deodorant for this whole convention. And I laughed at that. I was like, they low-key threw shade at the entire competitive gaming community. Because when it comes to hygiene, I mean, I'm not going to be stereotypical, but gaming, it will get you fuming a little bit. I mean, and some people don't realize that. I mean, you got to, you know, once again, I'm not comparing it to actual sports. The physical strain isn't as great as a actual sport. But, I mean, you get funky sometimes. And the sponsors decide, you know, we handing out deodorant at this convention. And I'm like, I felt bad because, you know, I'm an avid gamer. And I'm like, come on, y'all got to work on that. If we got sponsors handing out free sticks of deodorant, come on, work on that. Don't let the stereotype of gamers, big, fat, sweaty glasses, basement-dwelling gamers not having good hygiene. You know, that was the whole thing. But, I mean, I respect them for doing it because, unfortunately, it was necessary. But that's just a funny thing I decided to bring up. But, yeah, gaming in general, electronic gaming, even with other mediums like movies. The World of Warcraft has a movie coming out. And if you're familiar with that, that was the MMO that came out online back in probably 05, 06. It's pretty old. And I had that first month free trial, and I did not leave my house. I was addicted, and I decided not to subscribe to it. I knew I wouldn't get anything done. I would not be productive playing that game. But even Warcraft, that's a real deep MMO. It's been out for a long time. And it's getting a live action, 50-50, live action and CG for the orcs or the protagonist or the antagonist for the film, humans against the orcs. And even that, like something you never thought had a big enough upfront fan base is getting a theatrical release, I think next month or in June or July. And I'm just really impressed by that. I really appreciate the fact that gaming and basically otaku and Japanese culture in general is really getting out there, being, you know, get some light shined on it, because you don't really get exposure outside the internet or online gaming in general. So that's why I do this show AniMonday nights every Monday from 7 to 8 with the thanks to the WHPR station in downtown Detroit. Well, not downtown, Highland Park. And I really thank them for the time I get on the radio. You know, great place. If you have a dream or passion you want to get out live on TV, radio, whichever one, come on down to the station. You can pay for your session and just really get your passion out here. This is something I love talking about. I'm really comfortable talking about it. So I appreciate them giving me the time to really shed the light on these topics and discussions. And as I talked about last week, the PS4K, basically, if you're not familiar with that, it's, well, that's not the official name of it. That's basically a more powerful PS4. PS4 is one of the current gen consoles that launched this gen, along with the Xbox One, the Wii U. PS4 is the other one. And it hasn't been out more than 3 years, and they've already decided, you know, we need to upgrade this, because they realize, man, we made this thing powerful, but it's still nowhere near capable of what PCs can do. PCs you can mod and make yourself. You can build a PC from scratch of the most complex and complicated and technologically powerful hardware. And the PS4 is specifically a gaming console, so, you know, they gave what was necessary for it to be a gaming console. But technology is advancing every day, basically, and this thing is strong. As strong as it is, it can't keep up with the technological advancements that are happening every day or every week. So basically, we have to basically get used to companies releasing just like phones. Apple's a great center of that. They release a phone every year. Even game developers, Call of Duties with slight variations in gameplay, come out every year. And now, unfortunately, we're going to have to get used to gaming consoles, things that used to have 4-year cycles and beyond, getting small iterations in between these 4 years. And whether or not you hop on board the newer iteration of it is up to you. They make it optional, but for the most part, the average person is going to invest in the better software or the better hardware. So it's kind of unfortunate that they do that. One of the YouTubers I'm subscribed to, his name is Review Tech USA. He went really in depth with the whole new, basically the concept and the powerful aspects of this upcoming PS4 and how Microsoft is basically going to follow suit with that. So basically, if you have a PS4 and you're not concerned with having the best, the picture's already good on it. You get 1080p, you get HD streaming, live streaming from Netflix, Hulu. Having 4K is basically even better quality. And then even then, you have to have a 4K compatible TV, which aren't that expensive, but they're slowly coming down in price. But even if you decide to get this new PS4, if your TV isn't compatible with it, you won't get the image, or won't be as good as, and you basically wasted your money. So it's basically a slightly more powerful PlayStation 4. They overclock the GPU, the stats are all kind of the same. I don't think they gave it really any internal differences. They overclocked the GPU, or the graphics processing unit. I believe that means, don't quote me, that's what it means, don't quote me. They overclocked it, which means it's the same thing. It's the same one as in your PS4, except it's capable of producing more power. They're forcing it to produce more, and you're able to get better images and better graphics with your games, movies, and all that. So the GPU is the same as a PS4. They just overclocked it, or unleashed its potential and let it do what it can really do. And I mean, if you're into that, if you really think you want to invest in a PS4K, go ahead. They won't be making, they already announced, because they were getting a lot of flack when this was announced, that, you know, you think that when they're gonna make this new hardware with more powerful specs, that they're gonna make exclusive games for it. So the next NBA 2K, you may not be able to play it unless you have a PS4K. That's what they didn't want the consumers and fans who already have a PS4 to think. So basically, if you have a PS4 and a game comes out that's compatible with 4K or the PS4K, you can still play it on your 4. You just won't have that image and that slightly better frame rate, the 60 frames that you'd get if you had a PlayStation 4K. So there won't be any exclusives, but if you want to invest in that more expensive system to get the quality visuals that you were expecting, then by all means, that's for you. They haven't announced a release date for it. It'll most likely be this fall, because Nintendo is, unfortunately, their current system, the Wii U, didn't do that well either. Well, not either. It didn't do well. The PS4 and the Xbox One are doing pretty well. The Wii U did not. So they'll be announcing their next-gen system, the Nintendo NX, probably this E3 for the Electronic Expo in June. Supposedly, they're going to, their investors meeting is coming up this week. Or is it, I believe it's coming up this week. And when it comes to investors meeting, it's basically a company hosting this meeting for all their investors and people who have stock in this company. And they come to basically see what we're putting our money into. What are you coming out with, Nintendo, that we should back, or that we should support? And basically you get journalists and interviewers there along with these investors that get the scoop on the latest tech and hardware they're in development with. So there will be news about the Nintendo NX most likely this week. We're going to have journalists there, and everybody's going to get coverage on that. And people are speculating, we're going to get a name drop, an official name, because as of now, the NX is just a temporary placeholder name, basically. And a reliable source on Twitter, 10K is his name. He or she, I'm not sure which, they usually are very reliable when it comes to any leaks or news they get for upcoming games and coverage. So they said that this investors meeting will be this week. We may get a name drop on the 27th, I believe, of April. And the NDA lifts on that date. The NDA is basically this restraint or hold that the company Nintendo gives developers, because basically when any company has a new game or a new system in the works, they pass out the dev kits to different developers, whether it's Atlas or 2K Sports. They give them these developers years or months ahead of time to basically let them prepare games for this new system that isn't out yet, but get the specs and get the feel for this hardware, so you'll be able to make games for it. And the NX, Nintendo has given developers dev kits for the NX for the past about year and a half maybe. So basically the NDA is the hold they've had on these developers, basically a restraint, or at least like you're not allowed to leak any news or anything you're developing for our system until we give you the say-so. So apparently the NDA lifts next week, and all the info of any developers that want to give you news or release on their Twitter that whatever game they're developing for the NX, they're allowed to do that officially next week. So that'll be worth covering. Hopefully I'll have some news for you then. If not, you can check online. And it's going to be pretty exciting. Technology advances so frequently, and we're basically going to have to get used to things changing almost every 2 to 3 years. Aside, phones themselves already change every year. Now we may have to deal with even hardware like Blu-ray players or whatever you use, your PS4 or Wii U. You're going to have to get used to that changing every year. So if you have an opinion on that, give me a call down here at the WHPR station in Highland Park, Michigan at 313-868-0331. And don't be afraid to chime in. You know, this is something I've always been comfortable talking about with. It's basically a live podcast. I have a podcast I do weekly as well. You can find it on my SoundCloud at Big Badada 2012, BIGBADADA 2012. And this is something I love to discuss with people, just open discussion involving anime, gaming, technology in general, because we don't have a lot of outlets to discuss these things. So your host, Rodney Tompkins, is always glad to get a call from anyone listening. So definitely check us out. And if you have any ideas yourself, join us down here at the WHPR station and pay for your session. Definitely worth it. Now, as far as anime, we've been talking a lot about games this first 20 minutes. I want to get into an anime that I recently watched. The one is part of the new season. It's the spring season of anime, basically. It's only got about 2 episodes. It's a pretty recent series. And it's called, what's it called? Haven't you heard, I'm Sakamoto. Weird long name. It's probably better in Japanese, Boku no Sakamoto, however you pronounce that. But it's basically a school rumble type situation. This perfect student that basically gets all the girls. Dudes are jealous of him. Girls want to have him. He's this generic perfect student that's unstoppable, and the other classmates always trying to get in his way or find some flaw with him. It's really funny. It's from the director of Shinji Takamatsu is directing the anime, and he's most notably his works were Gintama. If you're familiar with that, I probably discussed it a week or 2 ago. It is one of the funniest anime of all time. It's been about 200 episodes in. It's the Family Guy of anime. If you can compare it to that, that's what it is. They break the fourth wall a lot. They have a lot of references to pop culture in Japanese and America. It's wacky how much American culture they have in that. Like, they had Will Smith pop in on one episode, and he was like quoting Obama speeches. It was the most stereotypical racist thing ever, but they threw it in this anime that airs prime time in Japan. So even in Japan, it's got a real it get critiques a lot because it's aired in prime time. So like basically right after school, it airs along with the One Piece and the Dragon Ball Z, and they get a lot of flack and negative feedback because kids are watching this show and it has so much adult humor. It's ridiculous. Like, there's probably in Japan, a show like Gintama would be TV PG compared to here. And if they aired it here, it'd probably be TV 14, possibly MA, mature. And it's a Shonen Jump series. Japan just has this weird standard when it comes to what's allowed and what's not, or what's frowned upon, or what's more sanctioned for TV. And especially when it comes to anime, between blood and gore, violence, and nudity, they have this whole different standard than we have in America. So Gintama is Shinji Takamatsu. He directed that series. It's really funny. It's only subbed. You can't find it dubbed anywhere, but if you don't mind subs, definitely check it out. They reference a lot of other anime. So basically, the more anime you have watched or do watch, the funnier this show will be because they reference it so much. Even, for example, this one time, the main character, Gin, got lost on an island. He was there by himself, so he thought. So he was just like staring at the ocean, and then he started practicing Kamehamehas. And then somebody walked up on him, and he just like looked back and was like, "Oh, I didn't know anyone's here." But they break the fourth wall a lot. They drop names of other series. It's crazy because I don't think you're allowed to do that. But they name drop a lot, and it's hilarious. Definitely check out Gintama first few episodes if you want. By episode 6, you will be rolling. First 3 episodes are a little slow, just introducing the characters, but definitely check it out. You can find it on Crunchyroll. That's the best place to watch it. High quality. They have the most up-to-date episodes. I believe it's about 270-ish episodes. And if you subscribe to Crunchyroll, you can get the latest episode without commercials and HD 1080p streaming. So definitely check it out. But back to haven't you heard? I'm Sakamoto. It's animated by Studio Dean. I'm not familiar with them or any of their other works, but the animation looks really good. It looks like a cross between Gintama and but then even Gintama was done by the Gundam studio. I forget the name for the moment. It slips my mind. But Gintama was animated by the studio that did Gundam. Studio Dean, I'm not sure what their anime or what backlog of anime they've produced is. The show looks similar to Beelzebub if you've seen the anime of that. The manga is hilarious. The anime was pretty good, but it didn't do the manga justice. It's ended a while back. It's still pretty funny, worth checking out, called Beelzebub. But I believe they may not have done that, but it looks like the art style is similar to that. So the adaptation, I haven't read the manga for Sakamoto, but the art style looks real crisp and clean, so I may check it out. But the first episode is basically about this perfect student who has no flaws. Everything he does is cool. He is the embodiment of cool. He gets perfect grades. He gets in trouble, stands out in the hall. He looks cool doing it. It's really funny. The male characters hate on him. Female characters want to be with him, and it's great. The first episode is focused on these three thug students who are trying to humiliate him or beat him up in a fight, and he just comes out on top every time. Definitely check it out if you want. The first episode, and it's got this real weird scene of him like sword fighting with a bee that got into the classroom, and they're just all amazed. And they do these real up close, like Death Note style inner monologues. Like, oh, he's really gonna sit there and do his work while this bee is in the classroom. It's ridiculous. It doesn't take itself serious. So if you watch it, don't expect it to be this really serious anime. It's really funny. So definitely check out the first episode of that. You can find it on Crunchyroll or Kiss Anime, most up-to-date anime streaming sites. You can definitely find it there. So that's the most recent anime I've been watching. I recently got back into Ore Monogatari, or My Love Story, and it's a real most people give you flack for watching a romantic anime because, you know, I'm a dude, you're not supposed to do that, but this is the cutest show you will ever watch, and I'm not even kidding. I highly recommend it. It's like, I don't even watch a lot of romantic type anime. This is just the one I ended up really enjoying. And another one I've seen is Eureka 7 or Eureka 7, if you pronounce it that way. The Japanese pronounce it Eureka. But that started out, I ended up watching that way back when because it had mechs and the art style was cool. But that, in the end, that really wasn't what it was about. It was about this dude who, this boy who fell in love, basically learning the ropes with this group he's in, who vigilantes who basically ride these mechs. And I watched it thinking it was going to be a hype mech series, but it ended up being a really beautiful love story between the main character Renton and this other girl he's basically getting to know, and it was really good. Check it out, Eureka 7, Eureka 7, however else you want to pronounce it. But My Love Story is this series about this big guy named Takeo, who's always been, he's in middle school, I believe, going into high school, and he's best friends with this real handsome-looking guy who gets all the girls. He don't pay him no mind, but, you know, he gets the ladies. He just ignore them, brush them off. They love him anyway. And the bigger guy, his name Takeo, is, you know, deep voice, really big for his size, and just real strong. And, you know, the girls look, oh, he looks like a gorilla. That's what a lot of the girls say. But he's a nice guy, and they will never insult him. They will tell you he's nice, but he's just not a quote-unquote attractive guy. And basically he meets this girl who falls in love with him, but he's thinking, oh, she just likes me to get closer to my friend Suna, who's a handsome guy who already gets all the girls. And basically he's too dense to realize that this girl really loves him. So it's a real, I don't even want to call it cheesy. It is cute. I highly recommend it. It's called My Love Story. Has about 17 episodes. I watched the first 4 episodes a couple months back and just kind of fell off of it, and I recently picked it up, watched about 2 episodes today. I'm on episode 8, I believe. And it's really good. It's cute. Art style is really crisp and beautiful to look at, like almost painted like Fate Stay art style if you've watched that series. So definitely check it out. If you're familiar with it, give me a call down here at 313-868-0331 and let me know what you think about that. Now, to dive back into the gaming portion of our show, I'll get into a little detail about another fighting series. You know, I'm familiar with the Smash Bros. Series. I play a little bit of Street Fighter as well. King of Fighters, haven't really got into. Tekken, I'm okay at. But Street Fighter Cross Tekken, if you remember, that came out maybe back in 2011. It was a collab project between the companies Namco Bandai and Capcom. Namco is known for their Tekken series and even the Naruto Ninja Storm games. They've done that, and I believe in some of the Dragon Ball Z fighting games. But Tekken was one of their first that took off and really got his hype back in the arcades in the 90s and the early 2000s. So Namco Bandai has been working on those games for a couple years, and Street Fighter has been worked on by Capcom. And who's familiar with them, they've done Resident Evil, Mega Man, Devil May Cry, a lot of other series. And for the first time ever, I believe they did it, not ever, they may have done Marvel vs. Capcom was technically a collab, just not with Namco. But this time they decided to work with Namco Bandai, and they gave us Street Fighter Cross Tekken, this whole new, they gave it a new fighting mechanic, came out in about 2011. It was pretty well received. Not a lot of people still play it to this day, but it's because they decided they were going to do 2 versions of this game. Like, I don't even want to compare it to the Pokemon games, because those are 2 separate versions you can catch exclusive Pokemon. this, they were going to do the Street Fighter Cross Tekken was Street Fighter gameplay with some new mechanics with Tekken characters thrown in. And a lot of people didn't think it would work because Tekken characters don't really have ranged attacks. They don't have key attacks like a lot of Street Fighter characters do. But it ended up working pretty well, and they called it Street Fighter Cross Tekken because it was Tekken characters in the Street Fighter world. And when that launched, they officially said, we're going to launch Street Fighter Cross Tekken and also Tekken Cross Street Fighter, which would be more Tekken-based mechanics with Street Fighter characters implemented into the Tekken mechanics of the game. And that was really hush-hush for like the past 2 years. They always gave us info or news that it was still in development. And even when the hype behind Street Fighter Cross Tekken died down, they never really gave us any more info about Tekken Cross Street Fighter. And apparently, officially about a week ago, I believe last week in specific, they officially announced that the game is no longer in development. Tekken Cross Street Fighter is basically for now on hiatus. It may even be scrapped. I hope not, because it's something I was kind of looking forward to. And I don't even play the Street Fighter or Tekken games like that, but I would love to play them if they incorporated Street Fighter mechanics, because I really like Street Fighter mechanics and I play Street Fighter competitively. But they officially announced that the game has been scrapped, or not scrapped, it's no longer in development, quote unquote, which means they could pick it up in a few years. You never know. But maybe they may need a Kickstarter to fund it. Maybe another developer will come in and help them fund the game. But as of now, it is no longer in development, which is really terrible because a lot of people supported Street Fighter Cross Tekken in hopes that they would get Tekken Cross Street Fighter because they preferred the Tekken mechanics to Street Fighter. So you got people who play Tekken competitively, you got some who play Street Fighter competitively, and Tekken Cross Street Fighter could have appealed to both fans, and like Street Fighter Cross Tekken did, but specifically for Tekken fans, because Street Fighter Cross Tekken already appealed to Street Fighter fans and brought in Tekken fans, I believe. So it's unfortunate that that happened, but you live and learn. Apparently they may come back. Well, Capcom has been they're infamous for canceling projects lately. Most people are speculating that they'll go out of business soon. They're almost probably going bankrupt. They are living off of the Street Fighter series. Resident Evil games haven't been good. The Devil May Cry series is basically done. They haven't released anything on that. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 has been no more hype behind that game since Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 dropped maybe 3 years ago. And even Mega Man games, their iconic character, they've been scrapping and canceling every game that they've started development for since probably 09 when they officially announced, or 011 when they announced that Mega Man Legends 3 would come to the Nintendo 3DS, which it never did. They canceled it halfway through development for reasons unknown. Nobody knows why. They even had fan input during development. This game was so hyped for the launch of the Nintendo 3DS back in 2011. During E3, they announced that, we'd get Mega Man Legends 3 because the first Mega Man Legends game came on the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation 1. And it had a sequel, Mega Man Legends 2, and even a spin-off, the Misadventures of Trombone, that came out on the PS1 as well. And it has a pretty big fan base, the Legends games. And 8 years later, they announced that, we're getting the final arc of the trilogy on the Nintendo 3DS, this upcoming handheld. And this was back in 2011. And they showed gameplay of it. They said fan input. You could mail them actual characters you created, and the most voted one would get implemented into the game. They went all out for this game. And then they canceled it halfway through development. Nobody knows why. There's still petitions online for fans, from fans, to get this company to start developing this game. There's still people who want it, but Capcom is in their own little world, just like Nintendo. They kind of do what they want. They tone out any noise, and they're going to keep doing what they do. But that's kind of Japanese developers in general. Like, Japan, their mindset is really traditional when it comes to developing, or even their culture in general. If something works, if it's what they've known their whole life, and it works in their mind, they really won't change it. And even I noticed that when I went to Japan this past October, it's like they have a system that works. They will not change it. They're stuck in their ways. And when it's something good, that's okay. But when you're getting critiqued and you refuse to change even still, that's an issue. But yeah, that's Capcom for you. But it's really unfortunate to see them that they do that, because they have a lot of fans. I've been a fan of them since I was a kid. But unfortunately, I'm growing up realizing that their company, the way they run their company isn't that great. You get older, you start to care about the finer things, like the way a company works, how they manage their money, or which products they're going to put out, when, and why. So, you know, you care about a little more stuff like that than just being a kid and buying a game or a comic book when you were a kid and just enjoying it for what it was. Now I'm spending money, I'm investing in this product, or I'm investing in something. I want to know more about it, and I want all the info I can on it. So if you have an opinion on that, give me a call down here at the WHPR station at 313-868-0331, and just let me know what you think about this. And I want to give a shout out to the my local barber I go to, Sheree's Barbershop. If you're familiar with them, right off of Harper and right before you hit Connor, Harper and Connor. Great place, you know, the brothers there can give you a mean cut. They have some interesting topics to talk about, whether you young and black or just old, and really got some words of wisdom for the young brothers coming in there. They are a great place to go to get a nice cut, have some interesting conversation, and even talk about games like this. My boy James, who gives me my cut, he's real gaming heavy. He all up on the pop culture and social media, so definitely check him out at Sheree's Barbershop in East Harper. And these brothers are some intelligent men. They will discuss some things you won't get anywhere else. And if you young, if you under 18, check them out, man. Just go in there, even if you're too shy to talk. Just listen to these brothers talk. They will share some knowledge to you, and it's definitely worth going there. Got a clean cut, good prices. Definitely check them out. So, back to more of a gaming topic. If you're watching via the app, you see me rocking my Kingdom Hearts shirt. And Kingdom Hearts is one of my favorite series of all time as far as games. It was a collab between Square Enix, who most notably known for their RPGs back in the 90s and even early 2000s. They do the Final Fantasy series. They did the Xenogears, which is one of the most iconic and underground RPGs of all time. It was really deep. The concept was nuts, really deep psychological type of game. And RPGs, they have a more Western development team now that does the Deus Ex series, or even Sleeping Dogs, I believe, if you're familiar with that game. That was by Square Enix, and that was more of a open world action game, almost like Shenmue, if anybody remembers that, but had a few RPG elements, I think. But Square Enix, I talk about this a lot on here because I love this company. They're producing the Final Fantasy 15 game that's eventually coming out, I believe, this September. That game had a 10-year development cycle, and their other series, Kingdom Hearts, also had a really long development cycle. The first game came out, I believe, 2001, 2002. You get, and the sequel to that, not even a sequel, the spin-off title came out, I believe, 2 years later on the Game Boy Advance, which was weird because you got one on the PlayStation 2. Why would you make the sequel on a handheld? But it ended up working, had a really weird, unique battle system. I really loved that game. And then the sequel came out in 2006, I believe. So that's a, 4-year gap, 02 to 06, between the next iteration of this game, and that's kind of a long time. And part 3 is apparently in development for the PlayStation 4. It was supposed to come out for the PS3, which shows you how long the development has been for this game. So basically, part 1 came out in 2002, part 2 came out in 2006, and part 3 still has no release date. They just keep giving us info on it. They will gladly release a trailer, give you info on it, but this game has been in development for 10 years going on, because it's not going to come out this year. And if part 2 came out in 06, that means this game has had a 10-year development, 10-year plus, and it's nuts. Basically, anybody who grew up with this game is grown and probably has kids of their own, because when I first played it, I was about 8 to 9, maybe 10, and that was the first one. And it's basically something, it's real close to your heart if you grew up with it. You really care about this series and the characters in it. And it was a collab between Square Enix and Disney, so it's not something you would expect to have a really mature fan base. Adults, I know, to this day play this game, and even kids can enjoy it because it has Disney characters with this really dark story about this basically this battle between dark and light, evil people and great and good people. If you're evil, you get turned into these creatures called Heartless, and it's the story behind it is really deep, and on the surface it looks like a really kiddie game. It plays really well, but on the surface it looks like a JRPG with great cutscenes, great dialogue, unique characters, but it has these Disney characters in it. It really throws you for a loop. But if you're familiar with the series, definitely check it out. You can get the HD bundle, I believe, of all the different versions that have come out the past 15 plus years. They have HD bundles for the PS3, and the latest one will be coming out for the PS4 that had the 3DS version that recently came out, Kingdom Hearts 3D, that launched on the 3DS. You could only get it on the 3DS. Now they did a HD release of it for the PS4 and the Xbox One. So if you like the Kingdom Hearts series or haven't played it before, definitely check it out or get into it. If you have an opinion on that, give me a call down here at the WHPR station at 313-868-0331. And yeah, Kingdom Hearts. It'll come out eventually. Lord knows when. They always release little mini series or mini spin-off titles for it. Like most recently, they released a called Kingdom Hearts Key or Kingdom Hearts X. You'll see it pronounced as like Greek X. The letter X is Greek for the word key or something like that. It's getting really deep for a Disney collab game, but the story is getting really deep. And they recently released Kingdom Hearts Key for the smartphone devices. So if you have an iPhone or Android, you can play this RPG. And I think it does advance the story a bit. I haven't gotten into it myself. I've been seeing gameplay of it. It'll remind you of the Chain of Memories that launched on the GBA way back when. But it's pretty good from what I've seen. It's giving you a little more depth or a little in-depth about the story, because the story is one of the most, the one thing that fans of the Kingdom Hearts series love the most is the story. So any bit of trickle, even a game release or an article we get about the story for this game series, we eat it up. And this mini game, basically, well, not even a mini game, it's a full game, just weird art style, different type of mechanic for the game. It's not action RPG like the full console version. It's smaller pace or smaller build like the handheld versions are. But it's definitely worth checking out. Kingdom Hearts Key gives you a little more in-depth story about the Keyblade War, which will be happening or coming to a conclusion, hopefully in Kingdom Hearts 3 if they don't delay this game any longer. But basically the war between light and dark, how it started, the original owners of Keyblades, these weapons that could unlock the darkness in people's heart, but it also reveals the light as well, so it's a double-edged sword kind of. But you know, it's really deep, it's getting really crazy, so hopefully we get some info on Kingdom Hearts 3 along with the Kingdom Hearts Key game that's out for smartphones and Android and iPhone actually. And I believe it's free. I haven't even looked at it myself. I think it is free. If not, if I know Square Enix, I don't think it is. It may be $5.99. They're kind of a money-hungry company. They charge for every little thing. Even Final Fantasy 14 Realm Reborn is the full-on online Final Fantasy game that they launched maybe back in 2013 maybe. But when they first launched it for the Xbox 360, PC, and I believe the PS3, it had a lot of bugs and glitches. The development didn't go well. The systems weren't really powerful enough to run this full MMO. So it's been getting patches and updates ever since it launched, maybe back in 2013, 14. And officially, then they re-released it for current gen, so Xbox One and PS4, and now it runs perfectly. It's a really great game. But I bring that up because it's a subscription fee just to play the game online. So you can have Xbox Live or PSN and be paying for that monthly or yearly, but this game individually, you have to pay another fee to get on their servers and play it online. And that's what really sets me off about it. That's why I have the game at home. I just don't play it often because I don't feel like paying $15 a month just to play this game online. And online should come with your system if you have to subscribe to that system servers. So even the PS3, back when that first launched, people always got hype about it because it was free online compared to the Xbox 360, even though technically, I will admit, I didn't like the Xbox 360, but it did online better between party chats and even the multiplayer-focused games. The 360 did online better than the PS3. PS3 was just free. So with this gen, a lot of Sony lovers really have no complaints against Xbox One owners because, you know, we have a subscription fee now for our PlayStation 4s, just like Xbox One does. And the Wii U may be the only system that the only system this gen that doesn't require a subscription, but then again, nobody with a Wii U has any hardcore games they want to play online, unfortunately, because that's not the fan base of Nintendo consoles. People who own Nintendo consoles don't play online. They do local stuff, but we do kind of want online. But Nintendo, like I said, Japanese developers are really stuck in their ways, and Nintendo is one of the biggest sinners of that because they are so Japanese. They don't understand their Western audience. They understand their Eastern audience, their Japanese audience, because they're a Japanese company and they know how to sell their products to Japanese consumers. But when it comes to translating and giving us releases and features in games that we expect, like voice chat or online multiplayer, they're like, oh no, people in Japan still play games locally, so why don't y'all do the same? Like, no, the Western culture is different than Japan's culture. They do more local multiplayer. We're fully online. We focus on online shooters, online sports games. We do everything online. And to have a current gen system, the Wii U, that doesn't have voice chat in games or doesn't have multiplayer for a game that should, is kind of frowned upon. And even as a Nintendo fan from like me, I expect their next system, the Nintendo NX, to launch with these features no questions asked. So if you got a question about that, give me a call down here at 313-868-0331 and just let me know your opinion on Nintendo as a whole, or even the Kingdom Hearts franchise if you're familiar with that. So Kingdom Hearts Key, if you like that series, or basically if you've played that, I haven't had a chance to play it yet. I'll be diving into it myself eventually when I get the time to, but definitely check it out. Definitely worth playing. All the games in that series are good. They have different, unique gameplay, but they're all good. And if you care about the convoluted, wacky story, it's definitely worth checking out. I don't want to call it wacky, but it's definitely convoluted. I mean, plot holes and Tarantino-esque twists, turns, all these, like, it's nuts. But if you can keep up with it, it is one of the most deep, intricate stories in a game to date, almost on par with the Metal Gear series. And that's another one that's really a convoluted mess. But if you can keep up, definitely worth watching, or definitely worth playing. So let's dive back into some more anime and manga talk. In latest news, if you've been attempting to keep up with the Naruto anime, I just tell people to go read the manga or read the comic because they're finished already. The comic, the author Kishimoto has finished the comic. Now we're just waiting for the animation production team to take his work and animate it. And they're in the middle of the Great Ninja War arc with this new antagonist, Madara. And basically in the middle of this arc, at its hypest point, they decided to pause and open up a filler section. Basically, filler is parts of the story that aren't canon or that didn't come from the original source material, the manga. And they did this whole story arc about this whole separate character, which is kind of interesting, but it's not something you're supposed to slap in the middle of this arc that's canon and really focused on the main story. And they did that for about the past month or two, I believe. And apparently, I'm not sure who released the info, but that arc is supposedly coming to an end. I believe episode 458 will be the end of the Itachi arc. I'm not sure what episode it's at now, but 458 will be the last episode of the Itachi arc that they decided to do smack in the middle of this war arc. And on May 5th, they will continue with this arc. So wherever it left off before this filler arc took off, I believe Madara had just initiated his technique. I don't want to give any spoilers. We try to do this spoil-free for all those listening, all our viewers. So Madara, their antagonist for this arc, had just released his special technique, and it seems like he basically won. And then they slapped you with this filler arc and basically this side story that has nothing to do with what just happened the previous episode. And they've been following that side story for the past 2 months. So it'll officially come to an end on May 5th, supposedly, I believe. They may have some online articles. I'll be able to give you more info on the next week, whether or not this is true or not. But definitely check it out. The new intro will be done by Asian Kung Fu Generation. If you're familiar with that band, they're a Japanese rock band, and they have some really amazing sounds with their songs. They've done a lot of songs. You're familiar with Bleach? I believe they did about 2 intros to the Bleach anime. They, well, most notably Bleach. That's where I love them from. That's when I first heard about them. But Asian Kung Fu Generation will be doing the new anime intro for this season. And all I have to say is it's about time. The manga has been done for almost 6 months. Well, no, the manga ended maybe back in November, December. So maybe 5 months. The comic has been done. The author has stated that it's done. He may do a sequel series based off the main character's son that he had. But the manga's been done. Even the game series, the Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 game series, caught up and finished the story before the anime managed to do. And that's kind of embarrassing, but you basically better off going and reading the comic or playing this PS4 quality game with these amazing visuals that look almost as good or better than the anime. So either way, it's about time the Naruto series has got back. It's basically in its last arc, and they should just kind of finish it up. And if Kishimoto decides to do a sequel series, let that happen. But just end it now. I feel like they're prolonging it. It's really not. Even the ending to the manga felt a little rushed. It's like you rushed the ending to the comic, and now the anime production team is prolonging it. Maybe they'll make the ending better by doing it this way. Who knows? Definitely check out the Naruto series if you're familiar with it. It's getting hype. It's basically Dragon Ball Z level battles in this series now. So if you like that, it's 50-50 when people bring up Naruto battles, because when the series first started, it was the original Naruto, and then they had kind of a DBZ-esque sequel called Naruto Shippuden, which is a time skip, and all the characters got a little older. And a lot of people argue that Naruto was better before Shippuden. It focused more on these ninja techniques. That's the thing. Naruto takes place in this ninja world, and the original series took more focus on actual ninja techniques and more hand-to-hand combat, less over-the-top chakra ki blast type deal that they're doing now for the Shippuden series. And people argue that with DBZ as well. Dragon Ball, I argue that personally. I think Dragon Ball was, as far as choreography and fight scenes, it was better than Dragon Ball Z. It focused more on the martial arts aspect of the series, less about charging up and ki attacks, more about hand-to-hand combat. And that's one thing I really appreciated when it came to the Dragon Ball anime. And even the animation, for that to be aired in probably, I think, the 70s or early 80s in Japan. We just didn't get it here till maybe the 90s, early 2000s. But Dragon Ball is very old. The anime still holds up to this day. The art style, they have HD releases or Blu-ray releases. You can buy DVD and Blu-ray, but it still looks pretty good. And even Dragon Ball Z, as long as that's been a running series, it's still going on to this day. Their newest series, Dragon Ball Super, is being streamed online. In Japan, it airs on TV. Here, we haven't had an official team to dub it yet. Funimation usually handles all of Dragon Ball's dubs, or anything Dragon Ball related. They usually handle the dub for it. But it's only about 38, 39 episodes in. If you haven't checked it out yet, definitely check it out. I won't give you any spoilers. This past week was amazing. It is getting hype. It has achieved the hype that we remember being teens, watching it after school on afternoons on Toonami. Dragon Ball Super, this new series of the Dragon Ball franchise, has achieved a new level of hype. I won't give you any spoilers. Check it out. If you basically, you don't even need to watch all of Dragon Ball Z before watching this. If you remember anything slightly from Z, from the antagonists Frieza, Cell, and Majin Buu, if you remember that, you're good enough to start this series and just proceed from there. So definitely check out Dragon Ball Super. If you have, you can stream it online, I believe. Crunchyroll may not have it. You may have to go to Kiss Anime or GoGoAnime.net. So definitely check out Dragon Ball Super. It has achieved a new level of hype. Give me a call if you're familiar with it. If you've checked it out, give me your take on these past episode at 313-868-0331. And try to be as vague as possible for all our viewers and listeners who haven't checked it out yet. Spoiler free is what we go for here. I know you can't really help it sometimes, or it may slip out. I probably already spoiled some things for Naruto just from mentioning the name I did. But you never know. Get into the series so I don't have to spoil it for you. But last but not least, I want to talk about Hunter x Hunter. If you're not familiar with that, it's one of my personal favorite series of all time. Whether it's manga, anime, check out either one. It's definitely worth watching. It's called Hunter x Hunter, done by Yoshihiro Togashi, I believe is his name. And his previous work was Yu Yu Hakusho. If you remember that, when it aired on Adult Swim and finished up back in the early 2000s. It's his next series, and it is one of the most well thought out action shonen series of all time. It's not my number one, but it's basically in my top 5. I can't even, eventually one week I will give you all a top 5 anime / manga list. It's just something darn near impossible to do for me because I've seen so many and I've watched so many and read so many. So it's really kind of a hard list. It's a hard list for anyone to make. If you're a fan of anime and manga, I thoroughly believe that that's a difficult task. If somebody asks you to give them a top 10 or a top 5, it's really hard to do. Between Code Geass, the anime, or Hunter x Hunter, the anime or manga, I've read both. Even Konjiki no Gash Bell or Zatch Bell, if you remember that, way back when. It was a series that came on Cartoon Network. Most people didn't even know it was an anime, but that is my favorite number 1 series of all time. I'll get into more detail about that because anybody who remembers it probably doesn't remember it being hype. And for that to be my number 1, I know you want to know why. So next week, I'll give you more info on that. It was called Zatch Bell. If you remember when it aired here in the States, it was definitely, it was an underrated series. The anime didn't do it justice. If you read the comic, it's definitely worth checking out. But Hunter x Hunter has officially gotten its dub. So it airs on Toonami, I believe, every Saturday night at 1 a.m. And it's only on the 2nd episode, I think. And the anime has been done for about a year now. It started back in 2011 in Japan and finished by, I think, 2013. Or maybe, yeah, I think below 2013 it finished. Maybe later. Don't quote me on that. I may be mistaken. But basically, it finished a while back. And fans have been waiting and in wait for a dub of this series because it is that good. And basically, we're just now getting a dub. I think Viz Media is doing all the dubbing for it, and it's definitely worth watching. It starts off a bit slow, main character. For a shonen series, most shonen series start off slow. You know this because it takes development. You have to develop a character enough to where you care about him. And this series does that. It starts off peaceful and just gets you into the most depressing, thrilling feels you've ever seen in an anime. I compare it a lot to Death Note. I say it is the shonen version of Death Note. They have really thought-provoking battles and really intricate monologues for these action scenes, and not a lot of action shows do that. They don't really give you in-depth fighting mechanics and fighting styles like Hunter x Hunter does. It's really deep. Even if you remember Yu Yu Hakusho, that kind of dived into that a bit. It was about Yusuke Urameshi, this spirit detective who's basically, his job was to keep the balance between the world of the living and world of the dead. And it got really deep as far as the enemies they fought and the fight scenes and the training arcs they went through. So Yu Yu Hakusho really focused on hand-to-hand combat. It had a few special techniques like most series does. Yusuke had the spirit gun and his friend Kuwabara had the spirit sword. It had technique, but it really focused on how they utilize these techniques and more about, I'll compare it to Dragon Ball Z, more about the power-ups and friendship power-ups that they get in the middle of a battle that lets them beat their enemy. That's one thing I'm not too crazy about. It's the reason I don't watch Fairy Tail anymore, if you're familiar with Fairy Tail. It was a pretty hype series. I used to read the manga, watch the anime a bit, but it basically it relied too much on the whole my friends are my power thing. I don't mean to quote Kingdom Hearts, please forgive me, but it did rely too much on that. Fairy Tail does that. And even the art style is nice. The manga has a really cool art style. Hiro Mashima, I believe, is the mangaka or the manga writer for that series. His other work, Rave, is one of my all-time favorite manga. Once again, I have to do that because I can't give you a dedicated list as of now. It's too difficult. But Rave was his previous series, or if you remember Rave Masters, if you're old enough to remember when that came on Cartoon Network, that was an anime. It didn't get a lot of hype, but the manga was really good. The anime didn't do it justice in general. It was animation wasn't that great, and they only stopped halfway through the arc in the anime compared to what the manga did. It was completely finished. But yeah, Fairy Tail relies too much on cheap gimmicks, basically, for the main characters to defeat their opponents, and that's something Hunter x Hunter does not do. And most of Togashi's work, the two I know him for, Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter, never rely on that. They're always fighting enemies that they can't beat. They manage to beat them, but they are never fighting somebody who is somebody beatable to them. They have to try and come up with new strategies just to defeat them. So check them out. It comes on, it's finally dubbed. So if you're somebody who hates reading subtitles for your anime, you can officially watch it dubbed. You're going to be waiting every week or on Saturday night at 1 a.m. on Toonami to watch it, but it's worth reading and watching online. Either read the manga or stream it online. Crunchyroll has it. Kiss Anime has it. Definitely check them out. You can subscribe to Crunchyroll if you want to get the top quality of the newest anime that are out this season, including Sakamoto that I reviewed earlier, the first episode of that. You can check out JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which I like to mention to people a lot. Really, the name alone is enough. I can't go into any more detail right now. Tune in next week on AniMondays when I'll dive into the 5th episode, I believe, will be out. Maybe the 4th will be out by next week. So if you're familiar with the JoJo Bizarre Adventure series, the name itself is enough. I can't explain it. It's bizarre. It has amazing fight scenes, has a real Western culture about it, has a lot of Western jokes that you might appreciate hearing said in Japanese. They'd even use their terrible English to pronounce it, so it's pretty funny. And I like to go into a little info about my trip to Japan at the end of the show every week. In October, I traveled with my uncle to Japan. He's a traveling musician. His name is Faron Aklaf. He does a tour there every year with his trio group. He's an amazing drummer. You can Google him, Faron Aklaf. Check him out. He's a great drummer. Has some excellent CDs you might like. But he goes to Japan every year, and this year I decided to tag along, and I enjoyed every second of it. Got me a plane ticket, bought me a passport, and I enjoyed it. The Japanese are very friendly. Their culture is very amazing. They appreciate you being able to speak their language and basically converse with them on their level. I'm not fluent in Japanese. I can introduce myself, hajimemashite, watashi wa Rodney desu, dozo yoroshiku. That means, hello, nice to meet you, my name is Rodney. Or if they ask, nihongo desu ka? That means, do you speak Japanese or Japanese? And I'd say, sukoshi hanasemasu. That basically means only a little bit. So I'm not fluent in it. I knew phrases. I studied it in high school, and basically went on from there via anime, manga, and studied on my own. So Japan is a place worth checking out. If you always had a dream of going there, never think it's impossible. I managed to go there. Growing up in Detroit, always loving Japanese culture, and I made it a reality. So never believe that you can't follow your dream and go to a place like Japan, whether you're just love to cosplay, you're just an average cosplayer, or love to go to cons and conventions, or just a gamer in general. I game competitively. I go to tournaments. I may not win. I don't get the $10,000 pot bonus that a lot of these great players do who dedicate their time and money to these events, but it's definitely worth checking out. Always follow your dreams. I'm never going to discourage anybody who listens to End of Monday Nights to not follow their dreams. I expect you to, and I expect you to definitely have passion and hopes to whatever you like to do, whether it's cosplay, gaming, whether you're a brony, if you know what that is. I don't hate. I like anything and everything. Give me your opinions next week. This has been End of Monday Nights with your host, Rodney Tompkins. You can find me at Twitter at Big Badada. That's BIGBADADA, or add me on Facebook. Tweet me your questions, inbox me, whatever you want. This has been